My name is Helen Spiropoulos, Admissions Manager at Stafford Global, and joining me this evening all the way from the University of Dundee is Dr. Richard. Good evening to you, Dr. Richard.
Hi, Alan, and welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining this session tonight. It's great to meet you all virtually, wherever you are in the world.
Yes, good. And now that you mentioned that, we do have some students from Qatar, as well as Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and also one or two from Africa. So welcome to our webinar this evening. All right, so how are we going to do this webinar this evening? So I'm just briefly going to introduce you to Stafford Global, and then I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Richard, who's going to take you through the program. At the end of the presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask me or Dr. Richard any questions. I will be looking at these questions and trying to group them together, because you do tend to ask all the same questions. So please do look out for your question and your answer. Okay, so who is Stafford Global? So Stafford Global was established in 1993, and we are a resource center for distance learning education in the Middle East. And we are currently represent 7 UK universities. And the mere fact that you are here this evening means that you have been in communication with one of our experienced academic consultants. And our role is really to assist you throughout the entire application process and get that very, very important unconditional offer for you. The academics of the program is managed directly by the University of Dundee with its prestigious tutors and professors. Okay, so I'm now going to hand you over to Dr. Richard, and then I'll join you towards the end of the presentation. Over to you.
Helen, thank you so much for that introduction, and great to see you as always. So as Helen's explained to you all, everybody, my name is Dr. Richard Holme, and I am a reader in Education Studies, but I'm also a module leader and tutor for the Master of Education programme. And I've been at the University of Dundee for over 10 years now, and I've worked on most of the modules and courses that we offer on the Master of Education course, and I was also the programme lead, the programme academic lead for a number of years as well. So I've worked with a lot of students who've come through Stafford Global, and worked with colleagues from Stafford Global a lot, and hopefully if you've got any questions about that, either myself or Helen will be able to answer those at the end. As well as my experience of working in the university in the education department here at Dundee, I was previously a teacher, and I have experience working in both the primary elementary sector, and also I worked briefly in secondary school too, or a high school as it might be called. I've also got a broader experience in community education, and before I became a teacher I worked in industry. And I had a remit there where I was managing groups of teams and helping them with professional development too. So my interests are very much education focused, so professional learning of educators like yourself, teachers, but I'm also interested in the STEM subject area. So that's things like science, technology, engineering and maths. And modules that I've led recently include reflective practice, and also innovation in education. So if there's anybody on the call today that's got an interest in those areas, I could perhaps answer some questions towards the end about the teaching methods and the approaches and the content. Areas like generative AI in education, or curriculum development and curriculum evolution, or the idea of global education. These are all big ideas at the moment in our sector. So although you're interested in the part-time online course, which is delivered in conjunction with Stafford Global, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about Dundee itself, because you might not know exactly where Dundee is. Sometimes we talk to potential students and applicants who don't know where it is. We're in Scotland, and we're not far at all from Edinburgh. We're just about an hour's travel north of Edinburgh. It's a beautiful little city, and in the last few weeks or last month or so, it was ranked as the top cool place to live in Scotland, and we sometimes get confused there with the word cool meaning very cold, but it is cold sometimes. You can see on the pictures there that in winter we get snow, but it means cool, and it is a great place to come and visit. And most of our staff are based locally, and we obviously have a large contingent of students here in Dundee. But what we try to do is, even as a distance learner, as an online student, we try to give you a flavour of Dundee. It's quite a small city. It's got a long history of innovation, of development, of technology. It's got the Victoria and Albert Design, V&A Design Museum here, the first one outside of London. You'll see that ship there is the research ship Discovery, which was used to explore the Antarctic a long time ago. So we've got lots of connections to history, and we try to take advantage of that with our delivering our teaching at the university. Now, the university itself, we have a guiding purpose, a guiding principle, which is to transform lives. And we try to do this both locally and globally. And this is through the sharing and the application of knowledge. And in addition to the education courses that we offer, we have a medical school. We've got a very strong science department with life sciences and engineering and computing. And we also cover subjects such as law as well. So we are a strong academic institution. Now, the people that work on the Master of Education course, they're all education professionals. They'll have worked in education themselves before as teachers. They've also carried out extensive research as well. And what they'll do is they will help you on this course tailor your learning to your particular needs and your particular setting. So before I tell you a bit more about the course, it's always good to know the institution you're interested in has a strong reputation. And these are just some of our recent awards in the various rankings, global rankings and national rankings. You'll see there that we're top 250 in the Times Higher Education World Rankings for universities, the top 200 for graduate employment rate, and that's the QS University Rankings. And we ranked #1 for the best at Scottish University back in 2022. And these rankings come out on a regular basis. So if you want to do a bit of research yourself into how we perform for education, you'll be able to find that. Bit of a spoiler alert, we do rather well in those surveys. So you'll hopefully be pleased when you see that. So moving on to the Master of Education programme itself. So what is the MEd? You're probably familiar with master's level study yourself. You may have heard of things like MBAs, which people in the business sector will have studied for, or you may have done a master's yourself in another subject area, possibly maybe in sciences or something like business. Well, the MEd is a Master of Education, and it's a program based on reflective practice, which you should be familiar with as an educator, but if you're not, we'll introduce you to that as part of the course. It focuses on work-based inquiry, so you can learn about action research and you can apply it to your specific and relevant setting, and it will help you develop as a professional. It is important to note that the MEd pathway that we offer at Dundee does not include a teaching placement, because most of our students are either in work or have been in work recently and are perhaps taking a short career break. So as a result of that, it doesn't give you qualified teacher status for state schools in the UK. If you're unsure of your own requirements and circumstances, it's always worth checking with a relevant government or registering body for where it is you plan to teach. Now, what our MEd does include is an international baccalaureate option within it, which is one of the most well-known international schooling curriculums. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that as we progress tonight. So what is the MEd and how does it work? Well, very briefly, an overview of it. We have both a part-time and a part-time fast-track option. So what you would be doing is you would be picking one of those, and it would allow you, if you completed the full MEd, to complete in anywhere between a year and a half, so 18 months, and 3 years. And this gives you flexibility and it gives you the autonomy, so you can choose to study when you want and the way that suits you best. We use what's called a blended learning approach, and we combine the virtual learning environment, which is a bit like an intranet, which you have special access to for not just the course, but for individual modules. We call that My Dundee. And within there, there'll be a range of materials for you to work through for self-study, access to resources such as ebooks through our library system, journal articles, and activities for you to work on. And we supplement that with live webinars and teaching sessions. Now, if they're scheduled for a time when you're not available, don't worry, all those sessions are recorded so you can go back and watch them. And even if you do attend them, a lot of our students benefit from going back and reviewing them later to help them with their studies. Our MEd at Dundee is very much practice focused and it's very supportive of your professional development. So you are learning about the process of learning so that you can support your students with their learning. And it lets you focus in on interests that you may have and specialisms that matter to you. I mentioned a moment ago that we are recognised and accredited by the International Baccalaureate. And what that means is if you choose one of our International Baccalaureate routes, then as well as completing your Masters for no extra tuition costs, you can also apply for one of the International Baccalaureate Educator Certificates. And depending on your prior experience and whether you've worked in an IB school or not, would dictate the route you took and which certificate it was that you would be eligible for. Now, I said there's no extra cost, but there is a small admin fee at the end payable to the International Baccalaureate themselves, but your tuition fees for the course are no different. So if you're not sure which route you want to take, but you think you might at some point be working in an International Baccalaureate school, or any international school actually, because there are lots of similarities, then we would encourage you to consider the International Baccalaureate option. And another key point about our Master of Education programme is we have students from different sectors of education, not necessarily just school-based education. We have nursery, kindergarten teachers, we have primary, elementary teachers, high school, secondary teachers, we have people who've worked in further education, higher education, adult education, and even people in professional sectors who want to learn more about pedagogy or andragogy, which is the learning theory for adults. And we've got a truly vibrant global learning community. I could list the different countries we've had students from, but that list would not be comprehensive because every time we get a new cohort coming through, there's other nations or other regions of the world are represented with our student body. So that's an overview of what the programme entails. So why would you want to study at master's level? So I can talk from personal experience. I was a teacher before I came to the university, and I undertook a part-time distance learning master's, studying in the evenings, weekends and holidays. So I know what it's like to do this, and many of my colleagues on the programme have as well. And my reason for doing it, very much like yourself, the case might be, was to extend my knowledge and my expertise, and it let me develop a specialism as well. I learned an awful lot of transferable skills, things like planning, the use of research, writing in a particular way, and also using critical thinking in my day-to-day job. And I still draw on that experience today from when I was a master's student. It helped me with my career development and progression, and it should do the same for you. And something that we're very proud of at Dundee is we've got, you'll have access once you've graduated or throughout your studies, but then once you've graduated, to our dedicated career service. And they can give you help and support. And only last week we were running a session with the careers service on getting a job in an international school. So you can join sessions like that, maybe during your time as a student, or you can come back later on as well. A really significant thing about master's study is it changes the way that you view the world. So when I was an educator, I came in with certain ideas. I'd gone through my teacher education, teacher training aspect of my job. And then the master's study allowed me to take that to another level. And it had a real impact in my professional life. And the image I've got on the screen there represents, so you'll see that classroom setting there. And those of you who have taught in classrooms, and have the opportunity to set your classroom up the way you do it, may have tried different things. So a traditional way might be having the learners sitting in rows, and in the university we have classrooms where there are rows set up. There might also be approaches where you perhaps have small groups of tables. That's often quite common in primary or elementary or kindergarten teaching. Now, the image there represents the horseshoe approach. Now, when I was beginning my master's, this was something I was interested in, the classroom layout. So with support of my tutors, I investigated the research behind different classroom organisation layouts. And what I discovered is that the research, and some of you will be familiar with this, is the most effective way, or one of the most effective ways, is this horseshoe approach where the teacher is able to stand at the middle or to the front and is able to see all the students. And similarly, the students are able to see each other and enter into dialogue with each other, learn from each other. And they've still got the opportunity to work individually as well. So this was one of the very early sort of learnings that I had through my own master's study. And it had a real impact almost the next day when I went in to teach my class. And I would always talk to my students about this, the learners. I'd say how I was learning about this theory and I was going to apply it in the classroom. And they always really liked that. They always thought it was quite nice to hear about me learning and then teaching them some of those ideas. So I'd mentioned about this idea of a specialism. So at the moment, we've got a range of named awards, and these are all listed on the screen, but basically we've got what we call our generic masters, which is in leading, learning and teaching. But we can also, depending on which modules you select, give you a final named award in educational leadership. Maybe you're thinking about being a principal or leading a department possibly in the future. International education, this is often studied alongside the international baccalaureate routes that I've mentioned. Inclusive education, which is also known as additional support needs in Scotland or special educational needs in other parts of the world. We also have a specialist route for nursery and early years education or kindergarten. And finally, we have a TESOL Master of Education. So as well as getting the master's level certificate at the end, you'd also be qualified to be able to teach TESOL as well. So it's English as an additional language. So a little bit about the structure. You can study up to 60 credits at a time. Usually it'll be 60 credits in a year, but there is a possibility using a fast track option to do two 30 credits in a semester. So we have 2 semester points. The first one is usually end of October, early November, and then the next semester usually starts around April. So that's our next intake. Our next start date is in April. And if you completed 2 modules, you would get a postgraduate certificate. If you went on and completed 4 modules, that would be 120 credits, then that would get you the postgraduate diploma. And then most of our students continue a little bit like I did when I was a teacher and complete the full 180 credits. It's not 6 modules, it's 5 modules, and that's because the final module is a double module, is a dissertation research project, and that 180 credits would be the equivalent to the full masters. And then you'd be finished and you'd be ready to think about your next steps, which might be a PhD or something else after. The core modules, which for the full MEd everybody studies, is reflecting upon practice, research methods, and they're both 30 credit modules. And then the dissertation, which is your own tailored specific research project to something that you're interested in, and that's the double award 60 credit module. You then top that up with 2 other modules, which may be specific to the named award I mentioned, and this can be international education, inclusive education, well-being of children and young people, innovation in education, leadership and organisational development. And we've also got a couple of others on there which I've not mentioned, which include the TESOL module and also a module in sustainable education. So a range of optional modules for you to select to supplement the core learning, which would be based around reflective practice, learning about research and research methods, and then executing your own research project. So here's just an example of how those named awards might look. So let's just pick one, for example. Maybe you are interested in the international education route, and you're also perhaps interested in the international baccalaureate certificate at the same time. Then you would complete the core modules, and then you would complete the international education optional module and another optional module. And depending on whether you have some experience in the IB setting, we probably recommend that you did the reflecting upon leadership in the international baccalaureate. That would be your extra optional module, and that would lead you to getting a named award in international education and also one of the IB educator certificates at the same time. And you can see on there the other options and possibilities. Now, if you want to find out more, the University of Dundee webpage lists all these different named awards and the different modules. It tells you the content of the modules. If you want information on fees, we're going to come to that a little bit later, then you would approach Stafford Global about that, because your application would not be through the central University of Dundee system. It would be through Stafford Global's website. However, the details of what you might be studying are available, I think, on both our websites. So the International Baccalaureate, which I've referred to a couple of times, hopefully you'll be aware of this. If not, it's worth doing a little bit of investigating to find out more. But the International Baccalaureate is one of the biggest international curriculums. It was established, I think it was established back in the 1950s or 1960s. And one of the reasons for it was that families of diplomats were moving around different countries, and what they wanted was a standardized curriculum that could be accessed if they moved maybe from one capital city to another, or maybe people working for big multinational companies or corporate organizations, maybe moving around as well. So we're one of the only providers in the UK, and one of the few providers in the world that offer this option to complete an IB certificate alongside your full MEd. And the three different options are either the certificates in leadership practice, and that would only require you to complete 2 modules, and you don't need any IB experience for that. Now, the other one that doesn't require any prior IB experience of working in an IB school is the Advanced Certificate in Leadership Research. And for that, you would need to complete the full MEd. You would take the IB modules, and your dissertation would also focus on an IB related topic. And by that point, you'd be very experienced, you'd understand the curriculum, you'd understand the ways of working, the ethos, the values of the IB, and you'd be ready to apply for jobs in that particular setting. The final option is the Advanced Certificate in Learning and Teaching Research, which runs alongside the full MEd, and that's for anybody who has 3 years teaching experience in an IB school already. So that's possibly one of the sort of top qualifications that you can get within the IB world as well. But you do need that 3 years prior experience for that one. So if you had queries about that, again, you can go through Stafford Global, or you could go to the University of Dundee website where there's a little bit more information about that. And the IB themselves have got a really great website that tells you more about these IB educator certificates. So if you've signed up, you've decided you're going to do it, you're going to apply for the MEd, you're going to apply through Stafford Global, you're going to join the program maybe in April or possibly later in the year in October. Your study time, once the module starts, we'll get in touch with you, we get you registered, we get you matriculated. That's the terminology we use for registering you on the program. The program staff will reach out to you and introduce you. They'll give you access to the virtual learning environment called My Dundee. And usually you would study your 30 credits over a 17-week study period. And what we would normally say is you probably need to commit to do well, probably between 15 and 20 hours a week. Now, that sounds a lot, but because this is a professional program, what you might be doing is reading a research article, you might be doing some investigations into policy, and then you're probably applying that in your day-to-day basis. You're maybe discussing it with your peers, or you're maybe joining one of our live webinars. So when it does seem a lot, 15 to 20 hours, some of that time could be embedded in your day-to-day practice. Now, I mentioned before the option for fast track. This isn't for everybody, and usually it might be somebody taking a career break, or maybe they've reduced their working hours perhaps. And on that basis, you can complete 2 30-credit modules in that 17 weeks. Now, you'll probably work out that 2 17s don't make 52, and this is because when you submit your assignment, there is then a 3-week period while the team assess your work, your assignment, or whatever the requirements might be for that module. And then you'll get feedback on that before the next module starts. So there's usually a break, there's usually a gap in between. There's also the possibilities for extensions if maybe you're having challenges in your home life or work's got on top of you. And in rare occasions, somebody might be asked to resubmit their assignment. And again, it gives you time to do that before the next module starts. So we're not going to delay your studies in any way. Now, we have previously offered a full-time 1-year option, but at the moment that's not available. So if you see any reference to that online, we're not offering that full-time option, and it's also not available through Stafford anyway. So the 2 options you've got are the part-time regular full MEd over 3 years, or this fast track as well. The exception is a dissertation module, and that runs over an entire year, 46 weeks, and that's to give you time to plan your project, to apply for your ethical approval if you're going to be collecting data, to work with your supervisor to develop your ideas, to collect that data, to analyze that data. And we know from experience, trying to complete that project in a shorter period just isn't possible. You need that longer time to be able to do that. So a bit about the additional support that you get from the University of Dundee. As I mentioned, we were voted back in 2022 Best University in Scotland. And one of the reasons, and we do well in other graduate outcome surveys, and I mentioned the QS ranking survey as well, a lot of this is down to the support that we give our students. We've got dedicated academic advisors who will be there on hand for you to support you throughout your time as a student. We have access to a counselling service as well, and there's resources available in case you need some help and support. There's also a disability service, so if you need some sort of adjustments made to your studies to support you, again, they have access to resources. And we have an international advice service as well. And even though you'd be an online distance learning student, you're still able to access all this. And we do understand that for some people, they might be returning to their studies after a while. It might be a few years since they did a previous qualification or previous study or previous degree. So there is academic skills support and English language support. And all that is situated within our library. And our library is really world leading. If you ever get to come to Dundee, if you join the course, maybe at graduation, it's always worth going to look around the library. It's a great facility. And the staff can also give remote support for you for that as well. And often people call on that help and support throughout their studies. The entry requirements for the MEd, you do need an undergraduate degree. It can be any discipline. If it wasn't taught in English, there is an IELTS, an academic IELTS requirement of 6.5. If you've got questions on that, then you can contact Stafford Global, who can give a little bit of guidance and support. We do need you to have some form of teaching or educational experience. What we mean by that is you need to have worked in an educational setting. So I said before, it could be elementary, primary, or secondary or high school, but it could be professional education. You could have worked as an educational support. You could have worked in educational administration, but you do need that understanding of pedagogy or andragogy as well. It's very well suited for anybody who is working in a particular setting and just wants to enhance their career progression, develop their knowledge, improve their practice. If you do have previous work experience, but you're not currently working, that's fine, because you can call on that prior experience and you can reflect on that experience and you can think about how you might work differently in future. So a little bit of a point about graduation. We're jumping right ahead now for maybe 2 or 3 years time after you've finished the course. We have 2 graduation points a year, and this is great because we've got 2 start dates, so it means that you won't have to wait too long for the next graduation. The bigger graduation is usually in June, but there's also an autumn or winter graduation in November. We love to see students who've come through Stafford Global or other international students who maybe have met in the online learning community, maybe never been to the UK, never been to Scotland before, but have come over maybe with their friends or their families for graduation, and it's always a fantastic event. Registry, who is our sort of central admissions team, they will sometimes let you know that you may be eligible to graduate. We always have to make sure that any final grades have gone through what's called the Board of Examiners. It's just a little bit of a warning. In the past, we've had people planning ahead 2-3 years ahead, deciding that they're going to be coming to visit and booking their flights and their hotels and everything. But just because of the timing, the graduation hasn't fallen when they expected it to be. So it does take a little bit of time from submitting your assignments to getting them marked, to getting them agreed, getting the certificates prepared and so on. However, if you do finish and you need proof of completing the Masters or the PG diploma or the PG cert for work, we can provide you with that certificate or letter of attainment proving that you finished before you receive your final certificate. But we don't give the actual certificates until that graduation ceremony in June and November. It's a standard thing that universities do, but we just let people know this at the beginning in case they're planning ahead and they're thinking about maybe moving their families or they're thinking about next step in their career. So why would you want to do the MEd? Well, employability, as I've mentioned before, one of the top 200 universities for graduate employment outcomes, and some of the recent surveys again have reiterated that. Now it says there that you get access to our career service for 5 years after graduation. That's actually changed recently. That we've now said that any graduate of the University of Dundee can access that help and that support at any point in their career. So I did my PhD at the University of Dundee. So if I was thinking of wanting some careers guidance, I was thinking about a move maybe, I'd be able to go along and they'd be able to help me as well. And you'd be entitled to that too. And MEd graduates have gone on to work often in leadership roles, maybe in international schools, at senior levels, but also in policy, maybe in government, educational administration. A lot have gone on to do further research, maybe as educational researchers, maybe working for organisations, maybe again linked to local or national government or third sector organisations. And we've had a lot of students who may not have thought about PhD study when they were embarking on their master's journey, a bit like me. I never considered doing a PhD, but once they'd finished their master's and carried out their research project, they thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. And many have gone on to be very successful PhD students. Now, there's a video here, and Helen assured me that it's been sent out to you. So I won't play it now because you can watch it in your own time. It's only about 4 minutes long. But I'm really pleased that this video has been made available to you, because this is Alan, and Alan is one of our very recent MEd completing students. He's not quite graduated yet, so I'm hoping we're going to see him at graduation in the summer. And I'm particularly pleased to see that Alan has recorded this testimonial about the Master of Education and also the support that Stafford Global give. And that's because Alan, and I didn't know he was going to do this, he was going to volunteer, was a student I worked with on the dissertation. So for the dissertation module, you get, as well as the module leader, you get a dedicated academic supervisor. So Alan was interested in learning more about curriculum relating to, and curriculum development and pedagogical approaches relating to maths teaching in the secondary setting, and in particular differentiated instruction. So that's ensuring that if you're not sure what that is, but adapting your teaching, developing that teaching so it targets specific learners and gives them support so that they can all achieve to their potential. So I supported Alan. We had regular checkups and meetings. We discussed his methods, his methodology. He shared some of his writing with him. I gave him formative feedback on that. And if you watch the video, Alan makes reference to the ongoing support, and we're talking to each other, even though he's finished his studies and he got a great grade for his dissertation. We're talking about how he might publish his dissertation work, because it was some really fascinating research that hasn't been done before. It was a real niche novel area that he'd explored, so we're looking at the possibility of publishing from that. So I'm working with him on that, and we're also talking about the possibility of him going on to do PhD next, and he's looking at different institutions where he might do that as well. So I'm delighted that Alan's recorded that video, and you can watch that maybe a little bit later on. So I'll jump through there. Now, a little bit of feedback from some of our students. Just some quotes on the screen here, that the MEd helps people understand their professionalism and reflection, taking their teaching to the next level. The reference to the second one is to the professional inquiry, again, giving them areas to improve. Reference to the support. This is something we're really, really proud of at the University of Dundee. The staff are, it's a smaller institution compared to some of the others that you might be looking at. So you get that really tailored support, and also Stafford Global will be there to give you support and guidance as well. And that last one there sums it up. You know, people often say this, or regularly say this when we meet them either at graduation or if they're giving feedback through student surveys, is how the tutors are very dedicated. They'll get back to you quickly with queries, and they'll be welcoming, and they'll be friendly as well. And I know, as having been a student myself and a parent of university students, this is a really important element of your decision. So a little bit about tuition fees and application dates. I've got on here that we're accepting applicants for October, November. That should be 2025, but we're also still taking applications for April 2026. So if you're interested, then definitely reach out to Stafford Global. They've already got your details. Helen is obviously here as well. But if you've got specific queries about how you might be taught, about the resources available, maybe what it's like being a distance learner, an online learner at the University of Dundee, feel free to reach out to me as well. If you for some reason can't find my email address, then just look for me, Richard Holme, Dundee. You should find me online just through a regular internet search. So I think that is pretty much it. So Helen, do you want to rejoin us at this point? And do I need to stop sharing the screen? I've done this a few times, I should know, shouldn't I? But I'm going to stop sharing screen. There we go.
Okay, fantastic.
Necessary.
Thank you so much, Richard. It was really, really informative. So I've been working quite diligently in the background and trying to group all the questions together. So we have some IB questions that has actually come from Samantha and from Rafilwe. Samantha's in the UAE and Rafilwe's in Kenya.
Wow.
So questions are, how do I go about getting the IB certificate?
Okay, great. So it's actually really quite a straightforward process. When you put your application in, it goes through Stafford Global, it'll come through to us. There'll be a particular route that you will take. Now, the first thing is whether you've got any prior IB experience. Most people don't, so they would go down the route where we would put you on the specific reflecting upon leadership in the International Baccalaureate module. And in that, you'll get the opportunity to learn more about the IB curriculum. You'll be given access to the IB learner and teacher and educator portal. So all the resources that go with that, there's no charge for that. So it's part of your registration on that program. In the core modules, the research methods module and the dissertation module, what you will do is you will focus in on an IB related topic. And this is the requirements of the International Baccalaureate, is that by focusing in on that, you're taking what you've learned from a theoretical perspective and you're applying it to an area that you're interested. So I gave Alan's example of him being a secondary maths teacher, a high school maths teacher, and therefore you could look at maths teaching in the International Baccalaureate. At the end of your studies with the University of Dundee, you would complete, you'd have your Master of Education, you would go through the regular ceremony, and then you would apply separately to the International Baccalaureate to say, right, I've completed this course, these were my dates, this is the course that I did. They would come back to us, they would say, oh yeah, we've had this student, they've applied for their International Baccalaureate certificate, can you just confirm that you did? We'd look at your record, we say, yeah, they did the requisite modules, they specialise their research in this area, and then that would be it. You'd get that certificate then. So we have a dedicated member of staff who is an academic, who is also called Helen, actually, so which is slightly confusing. But we have Helen that works for the University of Dundee and Helen at Stafford Global. And Helen at the University of Dundee, Helen Cunningham, has worked in a range of different international schools. Helen has worked in Italy, has worked in, I think, in Egypt, has worked in, I think it was in Thailand maybe as well, and has got real strong connections. And myself and Helen went to the International Baccalaureate conference, which was in Budapest a couple of years ago, and met IB educators, and we did a presentation there as well. And Helen is always available to answer any technical questions you might have about it as well. So that's how it works. It's a relatively straightforward, seamless process. So yeah, so it would be great if you wanted to go for that. And as I said, there's not many universities that offer it too. So, and we've been doing it a long time now. We've been doing it probably, I'd say 12 or 13 years. So we've got very good contacts and links with the IB. So yeah.
Absolutely good. And this question is related to the dissertation, and she says, I'm assuming that if I take the IB, I would have to include that into my dissertation. Yeah,
very much so. They're very keen. So when they come back to us, they don't ask to see the dissertations. That they trust us as an accredited partner. We have to go through an accreditation event on a regular basis as well to make sure that what we're teaching is at the requisite level, that it has the right content in it, that the likes of Helen who are doing the delivery, know her subject as well. But yeah, you'd be paired up with a supervisor who has some knowledge and experience of the sector, who can give you that support and help as well. Your research methods module, which is usually the third or fourth module you do, gives you a chance to develop that project. So you put a plan together, you talk about your methods that you might use, you have your research question, and you consider maybe some of the ethical considerations, and you'll get formative feedback from the module tutor on that. And then you take that proposal into the dissertation module, so you're almost ready to go. But also you can tweak it, change it, alter it. You don't have to do the same project that you've done for research methods. So at that point, you may have decided that you want to change your focus a little bit, because we understand people's professional circumstances change and their interests and expertise develops over time too.
Right, excellent. And this is also very good questions come through from Samantha. What would be the difference between an IB route and the normal route?
Okay, so yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the main thing, because the module, the way the modules work is that you select certain modules. It would be, unless you're picking that specific IB route with the reflecting upon leadership in the IB, the teaching is going to be broadly similar. The modes of delivery, the staff that you'll be working with. The difference is for the non-IB route is you can look at anything. You could be looking at maybe Common Core framework in the US. For one module, you might be looking at, say, then you move to a different school, maybe you come to the UK and, it's maybe the Scottish curriculum for excellence, or it's the national curriculum in England, or it's, maybe you say change sector, you maybe move from being a secondary high school teacher to maybe work in middle school or something like that. So you change your focus. So the non-IB route was probably a bit broader, a bit more maybe flexible in that respect. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't give you that additional IB certificate. I think if you don't really know what you're doing and you just want to undertake some master's level learning, then I would encourage to think about the IB route, because you never know in future it might be useful for you. And I've certainly learned a lot from working alongside students who focused on that, and through my visits to IB schools, and through, even though I've not taught in one myself, and through going to things like the conference and working with my colleague Helen, I've learned a lot from it, and it really is a fascinating curriculum.
Good. And this is a very interesting question that has come from Fatima, who's located in Qatar. You do have a variety of specializations. Will you be looking at doing a specialization in AI and educational practices, or is this already included in one of the subjects?
Okay, what an absolutely brilliant question. I was talking to our academic program lead, Anna Robb, in the last week, and we were talking about, and the program team have actually got a development day tomorrow where they're looking at possible developments. And one of the thoughts is that we could develop a module that focuses in on that. Now, at the moment, we haven't got that, but if you were applying for the 3-year MEd, there is a possibility for you to change pathway or alter your module choices as you progress. Most people will start with either reflecting upon leadership in the IB, or the or potentially the leadership module, or reflecting upon practice. So there's two sort of start points for most people. I didn't actually mention recognition of prior learning. Actually, the one exception would be if you've already got credits at master's level, you might want to apply for advanced entry. But again, we can answer specific questions about that if you want to get into touch later. But so most people start with that reflecting upon practice module. So by the time you get to the choice module later, we might have developed something along those lines. I can't commit to that yet, but I know there's some sort of conversations around that. However, even if we don't, there is a module called Innovation in Education, and that's a very open-ended module. And what we're finding is a lot of students very interested in generative AI, uses of it for maybe understanding pedagogy better, maybe applying it to your planning in the classroom, maybe using it for synthesizing research possibly, or bringing ideas together. So we are finding more and more students interested in that. So you could focus on that in the Innovation in Education module. You could then focus on your dissertation on it as well. You could maybe do an action research project where you're trying to use it in the classroom. You could maybe looking at the students' perceptions of it. You could maybe doing a comparative study where maybe an education system is really embracing artificial intelligence, whereas others are more skeptical and a bit unsure about it. So most certainly there's an opportunity to focus in on that. And the module tutor that you'll be allocated in addition to your module leader would be then able to give you some support, some guidance, suggested reading, meet you for a tutorial as well. If the assignment involves a formative opportunity to put a sample of work in before the final submission, again, they would give you feedback on that and give you some help and guidance. But yeah, great question about generative AI. I wrote a piece which you might be able to find if you search my name and you look for the British Educational Research Association, so it's BERA, B-E-R-A. You'll see there's an generative AI. There's a blog post. It's only about 600-800 words long. It's quite an easy read, and it was written by me and an MEd graduate. So Rick Karatika was a teacher, international teacher, and he worked in Thailand and a few other international schools. He then relocated back to the UK because he's originally English. And Rick now works in a University of Coventry, and he works in institution university level in educational design. So AI is really important for what he does. So the two of us wrote an article about the use of AI for research. So you might find that if you Google me and you look for AI and BERA, which is the British Educational Research Association, there's a short blog post about that. And as you'll know, there's lots and lots of information and research on AI in the public domain that you could look up to. So yeah, great question.
Excellent. Yes, lovely question. Good. And I've got a question from David. And David has said, you mentioned that I can change modules, but can I actually change my specialization if there is a change in my circumstances?
Yeah, it does depend on which modules you've taken, because certain modules are specific for certain routes. So if you'd already completed, say, 4 modules, by that point, you're probably not going to have that option because you've only got the dissertation to go. But if after, say, your first optional module, maybe you did reflecting upon practice as your first module, and then you did the inclusion module because you wanted to pursue inclusive education, but then you thought, actually, I've got an opportunity to become a leader, maybe a department faculty leader or a principal. Actually, I'd really like to learn more about leadership here. Then you could get in touch with us. We could look at changing your named award across and then focusing in on leadership as your next module. And then your dissertation would focus on leadership theory as well. The named awards, for some people, they're really important. They really want that named award because they want to take their career in that particular direction. However, when people are looking to go for promotions or looking to get new jobs or go in different directions, from our experience, the named award doesn't matter quite so much. My own master's was the generic leading, learning and teaching, and it wasn't an MEd, it was an MA because the institution I studied at didn't do an MEd. And no one's really ever questioned that or asked about that. And I chose different subjects alongside the core modules to develop my broad understanding, and I enjoyed doing that. Similarly with, if you went on to do PhD studies, sometimes people do PhDs, but you may also have heard of EdDs, so that's doctorates or professional doctorates in education, very common in the United States. Again, I did the professional doctorate in education route, but nobody ever really asks that. They just say a PhD is a PhD. So yeah, so maybe if you had a very specific idea in mind, certainly think about those routes, but equally there is that flexibility as long as you let us know early. And you'll have an advisor of studies allocated to you. So I mentioned Helen Cunningham, who's our IB specialist. Helen Cunningham and a colleague, Di Cantali, who's our inclusion specialist. They also act as what's called advisor of studies for our online learners, and they will be available to answer any sort of questions relating to personal circumstances. Maybe you require an extension, maybe you need a period of temporary withdrawal from a program or something, or you want to change route. They'd be the people to speak to about that first.
Okay, good. And a question from Diana, and Diana is located in Abu Dhabi. And her question is, if I decide to exit with a postgraduate certificate, how good is that for teaching? Does it have the same standard as a master's program, if a full master's program?
Okay, what a good question that is as well. So you're probably all familiar, or most of you will be familiar with the idea of a postgraduate certificate, a PGCE. So Anna's right, you can do 60 credits, which would give you the postgraduate certificate. Now, what we often find is people sign up for that, and then they get back in touch with Stafford Global or through the university and say, oh, actually, I'd like to continue. I'd like to do my diploma. I'd like to do my full master's. Now, it's master's level. So it's the same in Scotland. We've got something called the Scottish Curriculum and Qualifications Framework. It's very technical, but they have different levels of study. So you would go through from school age, high school, going up to the next level up is university level, which runs, so high school is level 6, and then it goes from 7 to 10 at university, and then undergraduate, and then the master's level is level 11, and PhD is level 12. So you're almost at the pinnacle there with your postgraduate certificate. Now, the couple of things to point out, it's not a full master's, so you wouldn't have the same number of credits. So if you were applying for a job or for a PhD, having the full master's would probably be better. They may request that or require that. The point about the PGCE is a postgraduate certificate, but as I mentioned, it doesn't have the placement elements to it. So you will also see PGCEs offered in other UK institutions, in universities, where you have to do a placement with it, and that would then qualify you maybe to teach. Maybe it's the IPGCE, sometimes it's called. So it is just being absolutely sure that wherever you're working or whoever you're working with is happy with the very theoretical side of things. What it does mean is you're getting a strong theoretical base. You're learning about the application of research. You're learning about research skills. You're learning about reflective practice, leadership, if that's what you're focusing in on, inclusive practice, innovation, that kind of thing. So yeah, so it is at master's level, but depending on what you want to do next and where you want to go, the full MEd might be something, or the diploma might be something to consider.
Good question. Good. And we have a question from I am thinking about doing a master's. I don't have in-person work experience, but I do have online experience. From your perspective, does it make sense to start now or gain more experience?
Now, I think if you'd asked that question about 10 years ago, a lot of our teaching was very much focused on education being classroom based. But the changes we've gone through, and I'm sure you'll all remember, 5 years ago, the year, 2 years of COVID, have very much changed and altered the way that we view education. And you may also be familiar with ideas such as flipped learning, where even in schools, the learners might be asked to do some study, maybe watch some materials in advance before they come to the classroom. So our course is entirely online. So if we were saying to you, you have to get physical face-to-face classroom teaching experience, there'd be a degree of hypocrisy there, because we're delivering this teaching entirely online as well. So if you've got experience as an online tutor, as an online educator, that would absolutely be sufficient for you to access and reflect on your learning. And what you could probably do is, if you're planning to go and work in a school or in a classroom scenario later, then you could reflect on, you could analyze, you could try and understand your approaches to pedagogy or andragogy from an online perspective, and then contrast that with how it might be different in a face-to-face setting. Of course, if you chose to get some face-to-face experience, maybe even shadowing, maybe an internship, maybe volunteering, perhaps in a school for a day or an afternoon a week for a term, that's going to benefit you as well, because you're bringing in multiple perspectives. So, so absolutely, you don't need face-to-face teaching experience, but if you chose to go and get that, that would be a real advantage for you, and it would really help you develop and learn. So yeah, what a good question that was as well. Some great questions tonight, Helen.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely get in touch with you, Madiha. You're a personal academic consultant, and we can obviously start getting you through the admissions process so that you can join in the April intake. Okay, so David's follow-up question is about the graduation, and how do I get my degree certificate if I cannot attend the graduation, which is a very common question, and a lot of students do ask them. Okay. So
yeah. Do you know what? It is one of those things. Unfortunately, if you're not able to for personal reasons, or I understand it's the cost of flights and so on. If you're halfway around the world, what you can do is you graduate in absentium. You still get your name in the little brochure that they produce. Your name would still be, I think, on the university website where we post our graduates. And what they would do is they'd post your certificates out for you as well. And we've got at the moment, which we've recently set up, and we'd love you to join and invite you to join a closed LinkedIn group for Teacher Education at Dundee. So on graduating, we'd encourage you to join that, so we could post some photos, you could see your classmates, and also we have a very strong alumni organisation at Dundee, so that again you'd get a newsletter from us. So again, with some we've often put photos of graduation in there. So if you aren't able to make it in person, don't worry. Would make sure you got your certificate, as long as you keep your address up to date. So if you move, make sure you tell us your address, because you don't want posting it out to the wrong address. But yeah, and actually, if you can't make the graduation, but then you happen to be in the UK maybe 2, 3, 4 years later, we always encourage people to let us know, and we get people visiting. It's fantastic to hear where somebody's gone on from having completed the course, if we've never had a chance to meet them face to face. So yeah.
Absolutely good. And a question from Rima that has come through, so I can answer that one. It's regarding a PGCE. She has already completed a PGCE and wants to know if she is going to get any credits. And the answer is yes, the university will look at your PGCE that you have completed. So do get in touch with your academic consultant. They'll be able to give you some guidance as to what documents are required to be submitted, and then it gets reviewed by Dr. Richard and the academic panel, and there is a possibility of you getting some exemptions. So yes, do put your application in as soon as possible. Okay, so I think I've managed to actually get all the questions together this evening, Richard. I think, and as you mentioned, fantastic questions that have come through. We are currently accepting, as Richard had mentioned, the applications for the April intake. There are limited places available, so please do send your application as soon as possible. And Dr. Richard, anything from you before we close off this evening?
No, just before you, I've noticed in the chat, I think there's a were they separate questions, Helen? The ones about various ones relating to lost certificates, working in as school secretary and so on. Have you said, yeah, you've got all those?
That's right. That's right. So we've just kind of grouped them all together.
Group them together best you can. Yeah, so there's all to say, just to reiterate that invite for you to get in touch if you want. Look me up, you can find my email address. Obviously the applications go through Stafford Global, so please do reach out to them as well. And I really hope we see you. I hope we see you online. Sometimes when I do these things, I don't find out whether the students have joined us or not, and then I'm leading a module or I'm allocated a tutor on a module, or in Alan's case I'm their supervisor for the dissertation. They go, oh yeah, I talked to you 3 years ago, you're in the, it's so great to get that connection. Or even at graduations, will come up to me, oh, I saw you online 3.5 years ago. So I really hope that you'll take up the opportunity, and I'm confident you won't be disappointed. You'll have a great experience, and we also learn a vast amount from working alongside this fantastic community of global educators. So thanks for your time this evening.
Absolutely, and we will be sending this recording to you tomorrow, so please do look out for this in case you have missed any important aspects of this webinar. Thank you everyone for joining me this evening, and again, wonderful to see you, Dr. Richard, and I hope to see you all on our program.
As always.
Thank you. Bye-bye.